Greetings. Today, let us talk about comparative politics. Let's see, politics is the art of making decisions when there is a clash of interest. Politics, the word itself comes with an air of complexity, but at its core, politics is about balancing different ideologies, balancing different systems, and balancing different beliefs to create a society that works for everyone. The beauty lies in the diversity of thought, where every ideology has a story to tell, a dream to achieve, and challenges to face. It's about managing collective action. It is the process we use to turn our individual interest into something that works for everyone. We want clean water, safe roads, education. All of this comes from collective decisions made through political process. It's like being part of a huge team where every member has their own needs, yet somehow the team needs to win together. We all agree the government should protect us, but how? Should it focus on crime? Should it focus on defense? Or should it focus on maybe on building fire stations? And how much should we spend on it? Suddenly, a simple idea like protection becomes a big debate. The same goes for education. Should everyone get free education? Up to what level? Should it include specialized fields? These are political questions because they require balancing individual needs with collective benefits. Now, let us talk about public goods. Things like water supply, roads, or waste management. You would think everyone would agree on these, right? But not quite. Some people might want waste picked up every day. Others are fine with twice a week. Some might demand recycling programs. Others might not care. It's a politics that steps in to resolve these conflicts and find a balance. And yet, politics is not perfect. Sometimes it feels messy, sometimes it feels unfair, or sometimes it feels slow. But here is the truth. Politics is the only way we can peacefully decide how to live together in a world where everyone has different needs, wants, and priorities. It is the glue that holds us together, the process that turns chaos into order. So, the next time you think politics is boring or irrelevant, remember that every public service you enjoy, your safety, your education, your clean water, it is the result of a political process. And whether we like it or not, we are all part of this political system because at its heart, politics is not just about power or it's not just about governments. It is about people. It is about us. It is about making life better together. Politics is like the lifeblood of society. It flows through every institution, every policy, and every decision that shapes our world. Today's topic, comparative politics. A fascinating field that goes beyond just understanding politics in one country. It opens our minds to patterns, process, and irregularities across the world, helping us to see the bigger picture. Let's focus on comparative politics. It's like comparing the way two families live. Both may have houses, but the way they run those houses can be different. That's what comparative politics does with countries. It compares their political systems, traditions, and ideas, helping us to understand why some systems succeed in one place but struggle in another place. Aristotle, often called as the father of political science. Aristotle kick-started this comparison game. He studied over 130 city-states and wrote a book called Politics. But those were simple times. He mostly focused on political structures. Over centuries, this field grew broader, Let's start with why we compare political systems in the first place. Think about it. How do we know if a system is democratic or authoritarian? How do we judge whether a country's policies are effective or failing? The answer lies in comparison. By comparing one political system with another, we uncover similarities and differences. These comparisons allow us to identify patterns, understand why systems work the way they do, and sometimes even predict the outcomes of certain policies. It's like having a lens that zooms out and let us see not just the tree but the entire forest. Comparative politics is more than just a method, it's a mindset. It forces us to look beyond our own borders, beyond our immediate concerns. It is easy to get trapped in our bubble, thinking our way of doing things is the only way or the best way. But when we start comparing, we realize how diverse and complex the world is. For example, electoral systems alone vary immensely from proportional representation to majoritarian systems. Each system has its strengths and weaknesses, and understanding these helps us appreciate the choices and trade-offs involved in governance. One of the most interesting aspects of comparative politics is its temporal and spatial dimensions. This means we look at variations across space, how political systems differ from country to country, and across time, how they evolve. Take the evolution of political parties. Early parties were formed with entirely different goals and structures compared to modern ones. By studying these changes, we understand not just where we are, but also how we got there. Now, why does this matter? Because politics, at its core, politics is about power. Politics is about power, who has it, how they use it, and how it affects the rest of us. Comparative politics helps us uncover the dynamics of power. It's like being a detective, piecing together clues from different systems to see the bigger picture. Why does one country succeed in maintaining political stability while another country plunges into chaos? Why does one policy work wonders in one place but fail miserably in another country? These are the questions. These are the questions comparative politics aim to answer. It's not just about big questions and global patterns. It's also about asking, compared to what? This simple question can change how we see the world. Is a country's tax rate high compared to what? Its neighboring countries or its own past rate? Is its healthcare system effective compared to what? Other countries with similar resources or ideal standards we hold in our mind. When we start thinking comparatively, our perspectives broaden. Let's not forget the practical implications of all this. Comparative politics is not just an economic exercise, it is a tool for better governance. By understanding what works and what doesn't in other contexts, policymakers can make informed decisions. For example, studying social welfare systems in different countries can help identify best practices. It is like borrowing ideas, but on a global scale and tailoring them to fit local needs. Comparative politics reminds us that while every country is unique, we are all connected by shared challenges and opportunity. Whether it's addressing climate change, reducing inequality, or ensuring justice, the solutions often lie in learning from one another. Politics, when viewed through the lens of comparison, politics is not just a subject, Politics is a journey of understanding the world in all its diversity and complexity. And who knows, maybe it will inspire you to play a part in shaping it for the better. It is fascinating how the same idea can thrive in one place and flop in another. A parliamentary system works for India, but the USA thrives with its presidential system. Same idea of democracy, different outcomes. Before World War II, comparative politics was like looking through a tiny window. Much of the world was under colonial rule, so the focus was on Europe. It was more about analyzing texts, how constitutions were written, and what technicalities they included. But after the Second World War, when colonies gained independence, this field of study expanded like never before. Suddenly, there were so many new players, each with its own unique political traditions. India blended centuries of caste-based traditions with democracy to create a model unlike any other. Meanwhile, Africa saw democratic systems being introduced to societies rooted in tribal structures. It's like everyone was handed a new recipe and asked to cook it their own way. Now, there is an interesting twist. Even within democracies, there are so many differences. For example, India and the USA. In India, we have single citizenship. We are an Indian, no matter where you live. We are Indians. In the USA, people enjoy dual citizenship tied to their state and country. And then there is the leader at the top. India has the Prime Minister leading a parliamentary system, while the USA places its bets on President. Even the way elections are conducted differs widely. India has a vast and complex electoral process, while the USA has its unique electoral college system. So, comparative politics is not just about governments. It's about understanding why these differences exist. Why does socialism work in one country and fail in another country? Why are some countries great at balancing economic development with democracy while other countries struggle? This knowledge is not just academic, it is practical knowledge. It helps us learn from each other. A country looking to improve its healthcare or education system can study models from around the world and adopt what works best for them. This study also connects closely with the international relations. When countries negotiate treaties, when countries form alliances, or when countries resolve conflicts, understanding their political systems is crucial. Comparative politics helps decode why a country acts the way it does on the global stage. It's like understanding a person's background before trying to befriend them. Comparative politics is about appreciating diversity. It's about recognizing that no single political system is perfect for everyone. It is about learning, adapting, and growing by comparing notes with the rest of the world. There are several political ideologies. Take conservatism, for example. It cherishes the old ways, the traditions that gives a sense of identity and stability. It's like keeping the roots of a tree intact, ensuring the present draws strength from the past. On the other hand, liberalism leaps forward, believing every individual has the right to shape their destiny, free from unnecessary interference. It's about giving everyone a fair shot, ensuring freedom of speech, religion, and even the press. Some prefer the middle ground, like moderatism, where balance is key. These are the folks who believe in harmony, sticking to what the majority finds acceptable. It's like walking a tightrope, keeping one's footing steady amidst strong winds of opinion. Then there is capitalism, which thrives on private enterprise, encouraging innovation and competition. But socialism counters with the ideas of shared ownership and equality, ensuring no one is left behind. Both have their merits. Both have their merits. While one inspires ambition, the other nurtures care. Other ideologies like syndicalism and corporatism, they dive deep into how workers and industries function, advocating for collective strength and mutual understanding. Meanwhile, libertarianism champions individual liberty and communism dreams of a world without private property, focusing on community well-being. Each system offers solutions to different problems. That's the paradox of politics. It's a puzzle with infinite pieces. Then there is feminism. Feminism is not just a political ideology, but it is a movement for justice, demanding equal opportunities and rights for all genders. It is a reminder that progress cannot ignore half the population. Then environmentalism. It echoes a similar call but for our planet, urging us to think green, live sustainably and protect the earth. As we dive deeper, ideologies like populism and republicanism, they remind us of the power of people. While progressivism pushes us to evolve and question the status quo, even seemingly extreme ideas like authoritarianism, then fascism, they stem from human fears and desires for order, though their methods often lead to suppression and conflict. Politics is not just about systems and ideologies. It is about people. It's about understanding that no single belief can solve all problems. Yet every belief brings something valuable to the table. It's a dialogue, a continuous effort to find common ground while respecting differences. Whether we lean towards tradition or change, individualism or community, the ultimate goal is to build a better world. After all, politics shapes the world we live in and the future we leave behind. Throughout history, we have seen countless versions of this political game, each played by different rules and ideologies. Think about monarchy. At first glance, it sounds like something straight out of a fairy tale. A king or queen sitting on a throne guiding their people. But in reality, monarchies vary widely. Some, like in the UK or Japan, they are symbolic, where the monarch waves at parades while the actual governance lies with elected leaders. Others, like Saudi Arabia, are absolute when one ruler makes decisions for entire nation. Socialism is an ideology that promises equality for everyone. Democracy, on the other hand, feels like the fairest game in town. Everyone gets a voice, a vote, and a choice. It's built on the idea that power belongs to the people. Leaders come and go, and human rights are celebrated. Autocracy is the opposite extreme. It's like giving one person the car keys and trusting them to steer the vehicle for everyone. Sometimes they drive efficiently, but more often than not, it's a reckless ride with no brakes. Historical example, like Joseph Stalin's rule in the Soviet Union. It reminds us of how absolute power can corrupt absolutely. Federalism is a more balanced approach. It's like a family where each member has some independence but still functions under the guidance of a parent. It works well for big nations like USA but can lead to inequality as some regions thrive while others struggle. Oligarchy feels like a club where only the rich and powerful have membership cards. Decisions are made not by the majority but by an elite few. Even in countries that claim to be democratic, whispers of oligarchic influence often emerge. It is a reminder that power and money when combined, can be dangerous cocktail. Republics and democracies often overlap. A republic ensures the stage belongs to the people, but not every democracy is a republic. The essence, however, the essence remains the same. Governance for the people, by the people. Yet the success of such systems depends heavily on the cultural and social maturity of its citizens. Corruption and mismanagement can easily derail even the best intentions. Then we have communism, which dreams of a world without classes where everyone is equal. It is a noble idea but often fails because absolute control over resources tends to crush human creativity and freedom. Anarchy, on the other hand, it dreams of no control at all, where people self-govern and live harmoniously. But without a framework, this dream often descends into chaos as personal interests overpower collective good. Each system of governance has its strengths and flaws, and none is perfect. The beauty of politics lies in the constant striving for improvement, for balance, for a system that benefits the most people. It's not just about leaders or it's not just about ideologies. It's about us, the people who play an active role in shaping our governance through participation, vigilance, and dialogue. At the heart of politics is a universal truth. It is not about the system but the intent, whether it's a monarchy, democracy, or federalism. The question we must ask is, are we building a society where fairness, justice, and opportunity prevail or not? Politics is not just a game for those in power. It's a collective effort to create a world where everyone can thrive. So, as participants in this vast game of governance, let's play our part wisely. But the stakes have always been and will always be our shared future. Through this comparison, through the comparative politics, we uncover patterns. We see how countries with similar challenges like poverty might develop drastically different outcomes based on their system and policies. For instance, does poverty lead to corruption or does corruption deepen poverty? The answers emerge when we step back and look at the bigger picture. By comparing nations, by comparing timelines, and by comparing decisions. By comparing all these, we not only understand what works, but also what could work better. Let's not forget the human element. Politics is about people, about their struggles, about their aspirations, and about their dreams. A stable political system offers hope, while a fragile one often breeds despair. Yet, labeling a country as fragile isn't enough. We must ask why. Is it due to economic inequality, historical injustice, or external pressure? Numbers and ranking can guide us, but they cannot replace the need for empathy and action. Politics is not just the domain of politicians. It belongs to each one of us. It's the air we breathe in society and the foundation upon which our collective futures are built. So, let's engage with it, let's question it, and let's strive to make it better, not just for us, but for the generations to